Hello and welcome to Season 2 of So Now What with Gates Cambridge, a podcast tackling some of the world's wicked problems with those dedicated to doing something about them. I'm Catherine Galloway, and my guests, as always, are Gates Cambridge scholars working to make an impact in the lives of others. Having opened this season asking how we could make the world better for young people, we concluded today by asking the same thing on behalf of the elderly. Because for the first time in history, our planet is home to more grandparents than grandchildren, with far more over 65s than under 4s. However, before we blow out too many candles in celebration, we should remember that for most of us, the physical, cognitive, social and economic challenges of ageing remain fierce, causing even a larger-than-life leading lady such as Betty Davis to admit old age ain't no place for sissies. Betty bowed out in her early 80s, astonishing when you consider that when she was born in 1908, global life expectancy was just 34. Recognising this profound demographic shift, the UN has designated this the decade of healthy ageing. But how do we actually achieve that for the greatest number of people, wherever they are spending their golden years? My guests today have been pondering this question since they were all barely out of their teens. So, a very warm welcome to Pradipta Biswas, Gates Cambridge class of 2006, dialing in from Bangalore. Julie Kwajin Lin, Gates Cambridge class of 2013, speaking to us from Gwangju, southern China. And Riaz Muller, Gates Cambridge class of 2014, nowadays based in Cape Town, but joining our Zoom studio today from France. Welcome, and thank you all very much indeed for agreeing to spend some of your own valuable lifetime today talking to me.
Nice to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Now, Pradipta, a key driver for your academic career in engineering and computer science is making sure that physical impairment or decline does not stop people from living their best lives. Recognizing that most technology developers have no idea what it feels like to be visually impaired, suffer hearing loss, or have mobility issues, you specialize in the design of assistive tech that pays attention to all those things and more. Based at the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, your work on digital accessibility has global implications, from eye-tracking technology for aerospace and energy-efficient safer buildings to smart TVs and telecoms. You've picked up numerous awards and honours for your work and guided a UN focus group on audiovisual media, ensuring our everyday devices are user-friendly for everyone and that keeping up with innovation isn't just for the young. Julie, you were named as an emerging leader in dementia research while still a postdoc at Cambridge and are spending your career trying to understand why our brain cells get less healthy over time and how we might help them protect themselves. Always with a focus on the applied, patient-focused side of the science, you're currently an assistant professor and group leader at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology in Gwangju, where you're also getting interested in the still clumsy toddler that is artificial intelligence and how it compares and connects with the 4-billion-year-old wisdom of the human mind. But maybe also how AI might be able to help us treat older people better in the here and now. And Riaz, you founded your coding bootcamp company, Hyperion Dev, while still a computer science undergraduate in South Africa, when you noticed that 80% of your class failed their first year because they hadn't had the chance to learn any of the basic coding languages before they arrived. By connecting those students online with paid mentors in top computer science departments elsewhere in the world, you've now helped over 13,000 students learn to code and launch careers in this sector, earning yourself a Forbes Africa 30 Under 30 award for tech entrepreneurs in the process. But you realise that the computer age has left other people behind too, namely all those over 50s who need support to upskill and carry on working. As interested in technology policy, equity and social justice as you are in the nuts and bolts of laptop life, you've now partnered with 30 universities globally, including Imperial College London and the University of Manchester here in the UK, to open up lifelong, flexible learning for late career switchers and older workers everywhere. Now, Riaz, I have to tell you that I think I'm your absolute target audience on this one, being both midlife and still infamously hopeless with anything technical. So to get us underway, I'm going to ask you all what you've brought to the table today that will help us focus. And Riaz, let's start with you.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me and for that introduction. Right now, lifelong learning is a massive initiative for governments around the world. In the UK, the government has rolled out something called the Lifelong Learning Initiative in recognition of how, as the workforce ages, the skills that people need, is changing so rapidly that within their lifetimes, the skills that they've learned at school or in university is now becoming redundant and they need to be able to reskill. And are now looking for a form of education that is not a degree, that is shorter, that is very skills focused, that can help them go and get a new career in a field that's just emerged. I mean, right now, Hyperion Dev, we work with 32 universities around the world to deliver non-accredited programs that are very focused on helping people acquire a skill that's in very high demand. That's a mix of learners, but they tend to be older learners who already have a degree or have work experience and are coming back to learn, but want to do it really quickly, want to get the skills in a flexible way, studying part-time online while they're holding down a full-time job. And they're really looking for, via this education, a clear promotion or a move into a new career so that they can earn better and have better career prospects. And also don't just do that in tech. So we also deliver training now in leadership, management, business leadership skills and things like that.
Thank you. So a sense really that learning is for life, and also we can't offer the same flavour of learning to everybody. That's amazing. Thank you. Julie, what about you? What are you bringing to the table today?
I'm bringing to the table some of my frustrations as well as hope. So my frustration is on two kind of aspects. So the first one is the relatively slow development of methods, strategies that we're coping with dementia, which is still a very deadly disease nowadays. And the other frustration is on the inequality of dementia diagnosis and treatments. So in some of my experience living in developed and less developed countries, I can see in some of the less developed areas, the dementia patients miss out some of the opportunities for testing for dementia and treatments. And I think there are hope that's coming on the way, which is to combine with the rapid development of technology, the AI development, as well as some robotics and other type of technological development would help us to deliver more methods for curing dementia, and also to have a social support program to support those elderlies in our society.
Thank you. So a massive challenge, but also a real awareness of the inequality of care in terms of dementia and aging. Thank you, Julie. And Pradipta, what are you bringing to the table today?
Catherine, first, many thanks for the kind introduction. And I think I am bringing to the table the fact is that when we talk about assistive technology or something for elderly people, it's also like we are talking about ourselves, that all of us in our whole life, we live within a range of abilities instead of disabilities. And this holistic view is still somehow missing when we develop technology or services, and often this doing something for people with impairment or disability is marginalized. But it's kind of change of thinking that I would like to promote and also bring to the table, that when we develop so-called assistive technology or accessible technology, that it's also we are catering ourselves, that in our daily life many times we have situational impairment, like we are driving, we are walking, and such technology has a much more widespread use, and that should be considered while any new technology or services is being developed.
Thank you, Pradipta. So essentially, an idea that when we're talking about aging, we're not just talking about aging, we're talking about wider social benefit actually for all of us. Thank you. So clearly that brings us straight on to a question that you've all touched upon, really, that there's no point living longer if you don't have good quality of life, right? So can you talk us through, Julie, some of the considerations there from where you're sitting as a molecular biologist and a neuroscientist?
I totally agree with the statement where the quality of life is much more important than just simply living for longer years. I think there are a few factors to consider as we get older and possibly facing some of the dementia, disease, and other kind of difficulties in those ages. I think there are a few considerations to the quality of life. Of course, the first one is on the medical perspective, which is, are you able to move? Are you able to communicate and speak with others? And the other one is the emotional kind of difficulties and challenges. So sometimes when you get older, you start losing some of your friends and some very close ones. So those feelings of loneliness sometimes strike those old people, and particular when you're living on your own. And also whether you would be able to have a community support, like your neighbors and those ones living close to you. I think these are all very important factors to be considered when living an older life.
Thank you. And Pradipta, I know that really chimes with you, this idea of quality of life, because the whole point of assistive tech is being able to access the world in its fullest sense, its widest sense of possibility. Even if we're physically less able, we should still be learning and stimulated. So can you tell me about some of the designs specifically that you've worked on to make that possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Say, I can start with one of our recent walks. So we were walking with a bunch of kids who have cerebral palsy, mostly from their birth or maybe at a very young age. And the result was they are quadriplegic and they also could not talk. And for them, we took an ambitious effort to make them play with standard remote control toy as regular kids they, and also we tried to let them help to use cyber physical systems like robotic manipulators for their rehabilitation and educational purpose. And the work was very rewarding because we end up with some eye gaze controlled low cost augmented reality interface which got widespread applications for teleoperation and remote monitoring, and already getting interesting industrial experience which has nothing to do with say disability or anything with cerebral palsy, but where the technology we started working on and the condition of our end users, they enforced us to think in more detail in terms of the usability or accessibility of the system, like that how we can make the thing simpler, or what are the underlying AI technology that can help them to move something at a designated place, etc. And that way of thinking actually helped us to develop better human robot interfaces, which we had much wider use cases. So yeah, and then there are many numerous technology like audiobooks or virtual keyboard design, something developed as an or started as an assistive technology found much wider use, and the way of thinking that to make it useful for people with maybe certain types of physical impairment as whole improved the usability of the product.
Thank you very much. Pradipta, Riaz, you're young, your company's young. Initially, it started as a young person's, an undergraduate sort of type of platform. But at what point, or was there a specific moment during the life cycle of Hyperion Dev where you suddenly thought, this is so good for older users, this is so good for non-traditional learners? And what have those learners been telling you about what they need?
I think one of the great moments was, just the stories and data we see. We did a survey of a few thousand of our graduates that graduated last year, and the median salary increase after taking one of these programs was over 180%. So substantial salary increase. And I remember we looked at the data of what percent of those learners in the UK were over the age of 50, and it was nearly a quarter of all learners. So substantial interest from that older demographic who clearly had a lot of work experience already and a lot of education. So just looking at the salary impact, and also the type of companies. So nearly half of the FTSE 250, which are some of the biggest companies, or are the biggest companies in the UK, have now a graduate from one of our programs working there, from AstraZeneca to Accenture. So very proud to see that.
But what about the technology? Do you find that they come to you sort of relatively nervous, those older learners, those 50 pluses, and saying, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this? Like, what is it about your platform that makes it so easy for them to step into that space?
Yeah, sure. We position our programs as having a free trial, and we've spent a lot of time building an online learning platform that lets people ease into learning coding, for example, lets them play around with some coding in the browser and understand bit by bit, hey, this isn't that complicated. And these days, you can generate code using AI. So we also have a little bit of AI to help them say, hey, look, you want to build a website. You can even now ask a Gen AI type tool, hey, write me some code that does this. So it's even more accessible than before. I think that online learning platform and the support that they could get from a mentor one-on-one really helps people feel less nervous about getting started.
Thank you so much. And I'm glad you mentioned AI there, Riaz, because all of you are kind of keeping an eye on these developments in your different fields. And, AI, obviously, possibly deeply scary for the older generation who aren't quite sure they understand it, possibly deeply helpful in terms of supercharging our capacities to teach or to care or to diagnose an illness, possibly deeply necessary to reverse that dwindling workforce, but also maybe deeply responsible for making the workforce redundant in the first place. So I'd love to hear from each of you where you would like to see our interaction with AI and our use of AI in this sector go to by the end of this decade of healthy aging, which is in 2030.
I am about to publish a book on merging this AI with UI UX design. So I give it some sort of funny name, that AI for usability and making usable AI. So it's coming through Taylor and Francis. If we look at the life cycle of AI, it's very much like our own life cycle, that there are some ups and downs. And if we just look back a few years, that the word AI was rather new, that it first maybe popularized in the 1956 Dartmouth workshop. But the word automation or robot has old history. Like the word robot was appeared in a Czech play sometimes in I think 16th century, and automation was there in maybe pre-medieval period. There was this talking head of Francis Bacon. So it was often portrayed as maybe sometime as a magic, sometime as a mythology, sometimes as a special power to a certain people, and then it gradually mainstreamed through various use cases. So I think present boom of AI also maybe it can be attributed to the recent development of a few newer technology like access of GPU or TPU, which lead to new algorithm development, and also abundance of sensors in that form of camera technology, which becomes very ubiquitous nowadays. And taking this together, now there is many discussion that how AI can affect us, or whether it is good or bad. But I think when we are helping a person, elderly person, it's not like that we are doing charity, but we are also getting or encoding the knowledge that the person gained for so long. Say for Professor Stephen Hawking, that the person who is developed the eye gaze control keyboard for him, that person is actually helped the whole world to get the concept of Hawking radiation out of him. So it is something we are also getting access to this encoded knowledge in the experienced population. And that, I think, should be the view of AI, that it is extracting better potential out of us.
So downloading the wisdom, if you like, our collective wisdom that we've amassed over centuries. Yeah, I get it. Julie, speaking to you briefly ahead of this episode, you told me that you were currently engaged in growing mini brains on chips. Now, that to me sounds an amazing mashup of the biological and the technical. Can you tell me where you would like AI to be, AI capacity in the next 5 years?
Yeah, I'll start by sharing some of my previous research before the AI age. Well, that wasn't very long ago, but that was before that I started to enter the world of AI. So during my postdoctoral research at the Dementia Research Institute at Cambridge, I was looking at how cooling kind of therapy, kind of cooling down the neurons, cooling down our brain, would be able to help us to battle with dementia. So we know this kind of ice bucket challenge when people were kind of advocating for awareness of ALS dementia kind of therapy. But in fact, during some of our research in the Malucci group at the DRI, so we realized that actually cooling is actually very beneficial for old people, potentially those with dementia, to recover from that disease. So to me, that was kind of very amazing work. But then I got to a stage where I possibly get stuck because I can't kind of actually recruiting volunteers to participate, particularly those with dementia, directly without actually proving its safety and efficacy of this therapy. So that's when I started my lab. And then I got into this world of AI, or sort of more like computer-based kind of design. And that was when I got invited by a publisher to translate a book, which is called A Brief History of Intelligence by Max Bennett. So this was a very interesting book to me as a neuroscientist, because this book actually compares the differences and similarities between biological and artificial intelligence. So if you look at the developmental evolution of biological intelligence that has been happened for billions of years already, versus our AI world is relatively short. But nowadays, the AI already will be able to help us to develop many of these tools that benefits like the elderly and as well as the young people. So in this book, what made me to think about is how can the development of the AI shortcut billions of years of evolution to actually get to this stage? And that also leads me to think, when we get older, when we're losing some of our memories, our capacities of thinking or critical thinking, whether that can actually be modeled by some of the AIs that we're now looking at. So as Catherine just mentioned, now we're combining those live neurons with more like artificial intelligence chips, more like the electronic world. And we're hoping by combining them in a single device or a single system and let them to interact with each other, whether we will be actually able to learn these neurons, whether they're young or old, how they behave, and whether that actually has similarities for us also to look at what our brains is doing when we're getting older.
Well, that's made my hair stand on end. Thank you very much indeed, Julie. That's absolutely extraordinary. Riaz, what about you? What would healthy aging, AI, and your field look like in the next 5 years?
AI is making some things more accessible. If you think about coding languages have become more high level, meaning back in the day, to do something with code, you'd have to write 10 times more lines of code than you need to do now to do the same thing. Now, with generative AI and further abstraction, you can use natural language, meaning human language, to ask for some code to be written. So rather than writing HTML code to make a website, you can say, hello, please make me a website that looks like this image. And the Gen AI will understand that and it will generate the code for you. So coding is going to change. basic coding tasks are going to be prompts. More complex coding tasks are still going to need developers who can go look at that code and work in the background. But AI is going to make those things more accessible. And if they're more accessible, they're easier to learn. And if they're easier to learn, they're more easy for somebody who's older to pick up, or somebody who hasn't had the luxury of a 3-year degree in AI to be able to pick up and still work with. So, for example, in the last 5 years, we've seen the rise of roles in AI, in people who can work with generative AI models, or work with data science, or clean data, or structured data. And so with the University of Manchester, we offer a data science bootcamp where we and the university together deliver that, and we see a significant percent of our learners being over the age of 50 years old, some of which are funded through the UK government to be able to access that training with a really strong lens on, at the end of this training, you're going to get an interview for a new role that's available in data science, and, trying to get into the working world quickly.
So we're talking really the ability to scale right across experience. Is that what you mean?
Exactly.
Okay. If we bring it back to the human for a minute, Pradipta, I know that you were very close to your grandmother and to an uncle as a child, to the extent that when they passed away, it almost derailed your studies completely. And that made me want to ask all of you, what has been the most valuable lesson that you've learned from being around people older than you? How have their wisdom helped to supercharge what you do today? You can start if you'd like to, Pradipta.
Yeah, I mean, I can take example of both my dad and my PhD supervisor, Professor Peter Robinson. So coincidentally, they are both of same age, and they are both a bit hard of hearing. But the important thing is that I would like to hear them because what they talk that is very useful and relevant for me in many aspects of both personal and professional life. And I think that is can be extrapolated to this whole big elderly generation, that yes, we know that maybe it's a matter of years that people gradually sensing abilities degrade and mobility degrades as people get aged. But still, we would like to access their wisdom, which is useful, that we need to look back before we jump forward. So looking up our backup. So they are our backup on our way forward. If I maybe I can talk about my PhD supervisor, and I still remember that with all due respect to all AIs and all technology, that many times during my PhD I show him some Excel file, raw data, and he could tell me that what's going on just looking at the data. So that I still remember.
Thank you. What about you, Riaz? Who's guided you as an older mentor, or what kind of wisdom are you taking with you from an older generation?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we look up to the example of Nelson Mandela in South Africa. He spoke very strongly about the importance of education and having the ability to give people access to education that can truly change their lives. I think boot camps are a great example of that. Being able to more than double your salary by taking a boot camp and access a high-paying career in less than 9 months, I think is something that is the reason why we continue to do what we do.
Amazing. And Julie, who's your elder statesman, elder stateswoman that guides you?
I wanted to say actually it's my PhD supervisor, so Professor Christine Hall at Cambridge. One of the first things that she taught me and actually made me to change a lot of the ways that I'm seeing things is to be open-minded and be kind to others. Sometimes living in this world, we feel a lot of competitions between our competitors in research and also our peers are sharing some of the peer pressures. But Christine always encouraged me to actually have an open view to everyone's criticism, and also always think in the kindest and nicest way. Sometimes it helped me to have a peace in mind. And also when I'm doing research, in particular under stress, that's how I was able to think about what Christine was telling me about how to deal with these situations.
That's amazing. So just bringing that calmness that comes with aging. They've been around the block a few times, these people. They don't get as stressed as the rest of us. And I think that's amazing. I think what we're really talking about in terms of a challenge of aging is also this emotional sense. We're talking about dignity. We're talking about equality of access to today's world. We're talking about being invisible sometimes and feeling invisible and how to counteract that. And I suppose in your work, you would be thinking, if we can cure dementia, we can also reaccess somehow, repair some of those neurons and allow that communication to flourish again.
So I wanted to start to share the story of my aunt, who very unfortunately was diagnosed with Alzheimer's a few years ago. And from that, it's very similar to many of the patient stories that I've seen. But because I have a much closer connection with my aunt, I was be able to see how the development of Alzheimer's over the years has changed her life. So at the very first stage, I think she was still very capable of interacting, and she has the emotional side of being happy, being sad, although her communication ability might be slowly declining. But we were able to make conversations where she will be able to share some of her thoughts. And as the disease progressed, some of these aspects actually is lacking. And the way for her to express emotions become more and more difficult. But sometimes you could see deep in her mind, and sometimes with some very kind of small movements in her face and gestures, you might be able to still see that she's having a kind of urge to express what she was hoping to at this moment. So we're hoping that with some of the cure and treatments, even though some of these methods we're developing may not be able to cure the disease completely, we're hoping that also with assistance of technology, some of these deep in the mind kind of emotion can be still retrieved. And we will find a way to actually also to express our emotions to the patients and for us to have some sort of a communication.
And Pradipta, I know that your personal goal, is to mainstream, to really scale that digital accessibility space. How are you going to go about that? What is the next steps?
I try to spend some time in the world of standardization, which is unfortunately often neglected by academia and left to bureaucrats, at least in my country. And I feel that the standardization is an avenue by which we can make a global impact on making systems and services accessible or overall improve their usability. And at the same time, I try to extrapolate, just as I was earlier telling about this example of human-robot interaction, that use of eye tracking technology, and as Riaz was very nicely explained that how the recent advancement of coding had make it accessible to non-coders as well, that's who are so-called non-coders. So similarly, like making existing AI technology accessible to a wider population, and see that how we can improve its application. I mean, it starts from working on augmented or virtual reality system and looking at their accessibility, but at the same time do not confine only to making things accessible, but looking at newer applications for them, which is maybe of interest to aviation industry, automotive industry, or robotics industry, and doing vice versa, that trying to bring the knowledge of the mainstream industry, or like for example in aviation industry there is a lot of progress in terms of user interface design and guidelines, while in the consumer electronics, many standards remain as a set of wish list that you can or cannot follow. So I try to marry these two domains, that in one case people have gave a lot of thought how to make things safer or more usable, and can I bring that knowledge to the community of accessible computing?
So standardize excellence and then scale.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. And Riaz, the stated ambition of Hyperion Dev is upskilling the world, no less. What would the practical, financial, and even emotional impact of that be when you do it?
Reducing inequality across the world. We started in South Africa, which has the highest inequality in the world. So, it's 10% of the population owns 87% of the wealth, I believe. And so I think education really stops that inequality gap. It reduces it. It addresses people's inability to reach high-paying careers that are gated by education that's too hard to get.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Well, we have got to the end of this podcast, very sadly, and I need to ask you, so now what? Help us support your own work in making aging less of a challenge, or maybe even just help us all age more gracefully and happily ourselves. What would you like to give us as our homework leaving this episode?
If I may start, I will give a message saying that if anyone, elderly colleagues or a person or someone with a person with disability is listening this podcast, I will tell them that you are not a person with special needs, that you are a person with very particular range of abilities. And maybe again a bit personal, that you can see a pretty thick glass on my glass, so it's a -15 diopter power I have, but on my back you can see a set of medals I own in shooting competitions. So it's the way of belief. If you believe you can do, and the technology will support you.
That's beautiful. What about you, Riaz? What are you sending us away with today?
I think think about the power of online education. Education changes very slowly, but can you imagine a world where people in the future they learn online? They don't go to campuses. There's no in-person activity. Think more broadly about the concept of being able to study fully online with some of the world's best institutions, regardless of whether they work with Hyperion. But imagine you could be in Namibia and be taking a full-on degree with the University of Cambridge, for example.
Thank you so much, Riaz. And what about you, Julie?
So I wanted to say to our audience that I hope that everyone realized that coping with aging and also combating with dementia is actually requiring a holistic view from medical support and also to social supports, family supports. And I hope that everyone realized that it's not just about taking medicines for long term, but also in terms of showing your emotional support to the elderly in the society. And I also wanted to call for researchers like Predicta and Riaz, everyone working on the technical side, when designing for new technologies and also tools, maybe also consider a lot of elderly-friendly features in these tools, and also make these features as open access as possible. This will help our older generation.
So that none of us have to be extra brave, as Betty Davis would have it. We could still be sissies a little bit and still get by. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Julie. And that's it for this episode, and indeed for the whole second season of So Now What. So huge thanks to all the scholars who have shared their expertise, their success, and their next bold steps with us across all 16 episodes so far, including my guests today, computer scientist, assistive tech specialist, and man of many interests, Pradipta Biswas, Associate Professor at the Department of Design and Manufacturing and the Robert Bosch Centre for Cyber Physical Systems at the Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore, molecular biologist and dementia researcher Julie Kwajin Lin, Assistant Professor in the Bioscience and Biomedical Engineering Thrust Systems Hub and in the Brain and Intelligence Research Institute at Hong Kong University of Science and Technology in Guangzhou, and educational technology entrepreneur Riaz Muller, founder and CEO of the award-winning and ever-expanding global online coding bootcamp company, Hyperion Dev. Listening to you all today has certainly rejuvenated me, so thank you for that. And I hope none of you ever retire, because we need every bit of brilliance that you're bringing to us. My thanks too to producers Mandy Garner from Gates Cambridge and Nick Saffel from the Central Communications Office at the University of Cambridge. And of course, thanks to all of you for liking, sharing and thinking through another packed season of So Now What with Gates Cambridge alongside all of us. I'm Catherine Galloway, wishing you a wonderful summer break.